I bought the house because no one else wanted it, and at the time that felt like a blessing. The listing was vague, almost deliberately so, just a few grainy photos and a price that looked like a mistake. An abandoned Victorian on the edge of a dying town surrounded by trees that leaned inward like they were listening. The realtor didn't talk much during the walk-through. She unlocked the door and stood outside while I went in alone, which I thought was odd until I realized she never once crossed the threshold. Inside, the air was cold and stale but not empty. Old furniture still sat where someone had left it decades ago. A dining table set for a meal that never happened. Dust so thick it muted my footsteps. I remember joking out loud saying, "Guess it's just you and me now." And even then, something about the silence that followed felt wrong, like the house had paused to hear me. I bought it the same day. I needed a fresh start, and this place was cheap enough to make that possible. The neighbors avoided eye contact when I moved in. One old man watering his lawn stopped when he saw me and just stared until I went inside. That first night I slept on a mattress on the living room floor because the upstairs felt heavier somehow, like the air pressed down harder the higher you went. Sometime after midnight I woke up to a sound that took me a moment to place. Breathing. Not loud, just slow and deep, coming from somewhere above me. I held my own breath and listened, and the sound stopped instantly, like it had noticed. The next morning I told myself it was pipes or animals in the walls, but the house was too quiet for that. Silence lived there, and it felt deliberate. Over the next few days I noticed small things. The floorboards only creaked when I walked, never before, never after. Doors stayed open until I commented on them, and then I'd hear a soft click as they closed. Lights flickered only when I entered a room, like the house was adjusting to my presence. Once while unpacking I dropped a box and muttered a curse under my breath, and something heavy slammed upstairs hard enough to shake dust from the ceiling. When I apologized out loud it stopped. That was when I realized the house was reacting to me, not randomly but emotionally. Calm voice, calm house. Anger brought noise. Fear brought silence so thick it rang in my ears. I started talking to it without meaning to, narrating my actions, explaining myself like you would to a person sharing your space. "I'm just moving this. I won't be long. I'm not trying to change anything yet." And the house stayed quiet, cooperative almost. But every night the breathing returned, always stopping when I noticed it. I avoided the mirrors. After one morning I saw my reflection fog over, as if something behind the glass had exhaled. The fog cleared the moment I stopped speaking. I tried recording audio while I slept, but the recordings were blank except for my own breathing and one other sound layered perfectly in sync, like something breathing with me, not after, not before, but together. The basement door had been locked since the day I arrived. Thick iron latch rusted shut. I ignored it until the scratching started. Soft at first, like fingers dragging along wood, responding whenever I spoke near it. One night I knelt by the door and whispered, "What are you?" and felt a vibration through the floor, like a low hum answering back. The next day I forced the door open. The basement stairs creaked under my weight, and the air grew warmer with every step, like descending into a body instead of a room. At the bottom I found shelves filled with boxes, photographs, journals stacked neatly like someone had been waiting. The photos showed the house over the years unchanged, but the people weren't. Different families, same rooms, same angles, always smiling, always standing in the exact spot I was standing now. In the final photo the house was empty, and written on the back in shaky ink were two words: "It listens." I laughed, then a short, sharp sound, because fear hadn't fully set in yet, and I needed to believe it was a joke, some elaborate haunting prank left behind. I took the photo upstairs and set it on the table. That night the house was restless. Walls creaked like joints adjusting. The floor felt warm under my feet, pulsing faintly. I tried to leave, but the front door wouldn't open, not locked, just refusing, like it was holding its breath. When I spoke it released just enough to let the handle turn, but the door stayed shut. I slept in the living room again, lights on, every lamp burning. At exactly 3:17 a.m. the breathing started again, closer now, beneath the floor, around the walls, above me, everywhere. I whispered, "I hear you." And the house responded with a sound I can only describe as satisfaction, a settling like something finally comfortable. That was the moment I understood I hadn't bought an abandoned house. I'd moved into something that had been waiting. That was the moment I understood I hadn't bought an abandoned house, I'd moved into something that had been waiting, and once that realization settled in, the house changed its behavior like it no longer needed to pretend. The silence stopped being empty and became crowded, every room thick with awareness. When I stood still, the walls creaked softly like they were adjusting around me, and when I moved, the floor responded with a slow, deliberate groan as if acknowledging each step. I tried to convince myself I was imagining it, stress, exhaustion, isolation, but imagination doesn't answer back. I spent the next day searching records online, old newspapers, town archives, anything and everything I found circled back to the same address: families moving in, families leaving, sometimes suddenly, sometimes quietly, sometimes not at all. No deaths reported, no crimes, no fires, nothing dramatic, just disappearances, lives that faded out of paperwork like they'd never been there. The house didn't kill them, I realized it absorbed them. That night I decided to leave for good. I packed what I could fit into my car and stood at the front door, keys in hand, heart racing, telling myself it was just a door, just wood and hinges. I said out loud, "I'm leaving now." And the house answered by locking every window at once, a chorus of clicks echoing through the walls. The air grew warmer, thicker, heavy with something like breath. The floor beneath me pulsed slow and rhythmic like a heartbeat. I ran upstairs to the bedroom window, but the glass was solid, unmoving, not frozen, not sealed, just refusing. I screamed then, not words, just noise, and the house reacted instantly. Pipes banged, walls shuddered, something deep inside groaned in pleasure. A whisper slid through the walls, not sound but pressure, forming words directly behind my eyes. "You noticed me." I collapsed onto the floor, gasping, and the house stilled like it was watching, waiting for my response. I whispered, "What do you want?" And the answer came in sensation, memories, not mine, images of empty rooms, dark years, silence, loneliness stretching endlessly. It didn't want blood or pain, it wanted presence, awareness, acknowledgement. It fed on being noticed. The families before me hadn't lasted because they tried to ignore it, deny it, treat it like a building instead of a living thing. I made the mistake of understanding. From that moment the house no longer restrained itself. Doors opened on their own, guiding me, not forcing, just suggesting. Rooms rearranged subtly, furniture inches closer, walls seeming narrower, ceilings lower, like it was adjusting me to fit. I stopped sleeping when I realized the breathing matched my own exactly. Every inhale mirrored every exhale, followed like the house and I were sharing lungs. I recorded messages on my phone, updates, explanations, proof for myself that I still existed as something separate. The recordings began to change. My voice echoed a fraction of a second late, layered beneath itself, deeper, calmer, like someone else practicing being me. One night I listened to a recording and heard myself say something I didn't remember saying. "I'll stay." I tried to destroy the house then, smashing walls, ripping boards, tearing wallpaper, but every strike hurt me more than it damaged the structure, my arms aching, my chest burning like I was punching my own ribs. The house wasn't around me anymore, it was through me. I understood then why the basement felt like descending into a body, because it was one just vast, ancient, slow to move but very much alive. It began closing off spaces, the kitchen shrinking, hallways bending subtly until I noticed rooms I'd walked through before no longer existed. The house didn't need all that space anymore, it only needed enough to hold me. Days blurred into nights, light filtered in weakly like the house allowed it rather than needed it. I stopped trying to leave because every attempt made the house restless, and restlessness felt dangerous. When I stayed quiet, spoke softly, acknowledged it, the house calmed, the walls warmed, the floors steady, the breathing gentle. I learned its moods, its rhythms, when to speak, when to remain silent. I became careful, considerate, a good occupant. That's how it wins, not through fear but through accommodation. One evening while sitting in the living room I realized I couldn't remember the town's name anymore, or how long I'd lived here, or what my life before looked like beyond vague impressions. The house was smoothing me down, erasing edges, making me easier to keep. I rushed to record one final message sitting on the same floor where I'd slept the first night, my voice shaking, telling whoever found this that the house listens, that it reacts, that it doesn't want to be alone, and that noticing it is the worst thing you can do. As I spoke, the walls leaned in closer, the breathing loud, warm, approving. I finished the message and whispered, "I'm sorry," not sure who it was for. The front door opened behind me slowly without a sound, not for me but for someone else. Fresh, cold air rushed in, carrying distant footsteps, voices, curious, excited, hopeful. The house tightened around me gently, like a hand closing. I understood then my role, not prisoner, not victim, but anchor. The house needed someone inside to feel the next one arrive. As the footsteps crossed the threshold, the door closed softly, sealing the sound of the outside world away. The house breathed in, deeply satisfied, and for the first time since I arrived I felt calm, because I wasn't alone anymore, and neither was the house.